This project started with one step forward, two steps back, right out of the gate. It's been a really long time since I've done an acrylic painting, so I thought I'd jump in after some time away from this material since I've been so obsessed with using the acrylic inks that I figured it was time to open up a new medium for a little bit. Don't mind me, I'm a little bit exhausted, I'm not gonna lie. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off for the last month, which I'll get into as to where I am because it's been a hot minute and a half since I posted a video. Now, right away, you can see that I just jumped right into the painting, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't any kind of planning involved when it came to this piece. There is going to be a short that I post, which kind of like takes a snippet from my Premiere Pro. I take two pieces of my sketches that I've done in my sketchbook and I combine them together in order to create this line work.
Hi, this is Simone from the future. I keep saying that it's Premiere Pro, but it's not. It's Procreate. I don't know. I think it's because they both start with the letter P. And I'm just, like I will go into later on in the video, I'm just exhausted. So I definitely messed up on that. Anytime I say that I was doing the edits in Premiere, that is inaccurate. It was through Procreate. Back to your regular scheduled program.
If you do want to check it out, I'm going to post it in the link below. So that way you can check it out later on when I do upload it to the YouTubes. So stay tuned for that fun little ditty. Now, this project wasn't that difficult from the beginning. From taking the sketches from my original sketchbook, combining them together, and then uploading them to Premiere Pro so that way I could start doing the line work. I wanted this to be rather symmetrical, so this is why I used Premiere Pro instead of drawing it straight onto the canvas. And everything went smooth up until the point where I had to print it off. Now, when it comes to transferring images onto the canvas, I do have a charcoal paper that I put onto the backing of any kind of prints that I do if I want to do a transfer that's very similar to, say, a project that I do in Premiere. After I do that and I tape it on and then I draw out the figure, then I can begin painting. Easy peasy. The issue that I came into is that printer, I lie to you not, fought with me for 7 hours. I really wish I was exaggerating, but I don't often use my printer is the problem. There's not very much that I need to print on a day-to-day. Like most things are digital these days, so everything is fine. So most of the time it just kind of sits there and collects dust. The only time that I actually end up using my printer is if I'm doing one of these projects. To be honest, it's probably the only reason why I own a printer. Otherwise, I would just check my butt over to Staples and get it done there. Anyways, the printer is fairly old, so with the new rise in technology, the changeovers to 5G and all that, 2 gigahertz, this, that, and the other, it just would not connect to my computer. And anytime that I tried to print it through my phone, the image just wasn't coming out the size that I want. I have a couple of tiny little wallet-sized prints now, but that didn't help me in the long run, and it just became a massive headache. I originally planned filming myself smashing the printer once the snow melted. This is how long it's been since I've actually started this project, but frankly, it's just been too long that I need to get something out and ready to go and just start on the pattern that I was on before the chaos ensued over the last month or so. Rewind a little bit before we get into that whole spiel about what's been going on in my life. Let's talk about the sketch a little bit. So originally I sketched this out for a Halloween themed video. I already knew right away when I was doing the sketch that I wanted to give it a certain ambiance, which is why I started off with the canvas being painted more of a purpley bluish hue. So that way it can kind of bleed through and I can start off with a base color. Now, of course, because it is the month of October, I wanted more of a darker tone, so I took inspirations from one of the greats. No other than, obviously, Tim Burton. I looked through different color themes from his works like Nightmare Before Christmas, Addams Family, Corpse Bride, before I ultimately chose the color palette that I did go with. Since I was working with a lot more warmer tones and have been working with a lot more warmer tones, I did want it to have more of a cooler effect to it, which I do feel like I achieved at the end of the day. This project obviously comes with a lot more challenges other than the printer. When working with acrylics, it takes me longer and it is a bigger commitment. I think in total, this project took me approximately like 3 days in order to do. When I was in the pre-planning stage, I know myself. So I knew that it was going to take me longer to paint this. It wasn't going to be like a couple of hours and then voila, you have a masterpiece. I anticipated that I needed the paint's longevity to last, but I still wanted to use the acrylics because I like how fast they dry. I just don't like how fast they dry on the palette. This is where I got introduced to a couple of challenges that I didn't foresee. I had two goals. One, keep the same color palette that I created, obviously making alterations depending on the section that I was painting, like adding more blue or more yellow if, I needed to cool down or warm up the area to create more contrast. And two, to stop the glare from the acrylic paints once the light was shined on it. Every time I paint with acrylics, I run into the same problem. Either I can't see what I'm painting because of the light, or the camera focuses heavily on the lighting and then the footage is just garbage. To hit this goal, I mixed in two different medium. One, Liquitex Professional Slow-Dri Fluid Retardant, and two, a acrylic matte medium gel. Now, the Slow-Dri fluid, its main purpose is to slow down the drying time for any kind of acrylic paints. Because of the dry times, it can be a challenge for specific techniques like blending or, longer work times. And then the matte medium is designed to mix with the acrylic paints, or it can be used on its own. Its main job is to take away the shine of the acrylic paints and give it a matte finish. It can also add a little bit of body to the paints as well, especially if it's like a liquid fluid. It also helps it as extending the paint volume that you're using as well, so you don't need to use a lot of paint. Issue is, the more that you use, the more transparent the paint becomes. More skilled artists who have used the acrylics for a long time and have used these mediums can probably navigate how much they actually need and how much they don't. So for me, it was a little bit of a gamble for any kind of measurements that I was using and how it would actually respond to the paint. With the mixture that I actually added in, I ran into the complication where the paint was actually thin enough that it was more like a fluid rather than a heavy body, which was good because it allowed me to move the paint around the canvas a little bit more. This also means that the paint was a lot more transparent. Because of this caused me to do a lot of layers on the painting, which I'm never objective to layers. If you've watched a couple of my videos before, you know that for me, in order to create a good piece, it's all about the layers. That's how I add in textures. That's how I add in highlights. So layering paint isn't a bad thing, but when you need that more of an opaque color compared to the transparency, this is where it kind of hindered me because I had to put down a lot of layers down in order to hide what was underneath. All in all, I ended up just creating more work for myself at the end of the day. In pursuit of fixing the two goals that I had or fixing the two problems that I had, I ended up creating more work for myself because even just to get a base date layer down, I had to do 2 or 3 coats depending on, how transparent or how non-transparent that I actually needed it. And the biggest thing is because I did this in such a large batch, once the mixture was mixed in, there was no going back. All in all, that's how you can learn though, right? So I obviously am going to try this again because it did end up working. I mixed this original paint palette on the 10th of April. I didn't start filming until April the 14th. And then there was about a 2 or 3 day break in between because I had to attend a special event that required my attendance, non-negotiable. So yeah, I actually recently just checked on the paint because I wanted to add some of the colors into my sketchbook. So if I decided to do a sketchbook trial run or paint set or whatever, I wanted to have some back coloring on a couple of the pages. And I'm happy to say as of the 28th, it is actually still wet. So the mixture worked as well as another technique that I did try to implement as well. I don't know how long it's going to last, but if it saves me on paint and time, why not, right? I'm also not made of money, so using the extra paint that I had left over that it wasn't worth saving and then putting it to the sketchbook allowed me to create, canvas paper on paper that isn't meant for paint. So I can actually come back to it later. But on top of that, waste not, want not, and I am poor and don't want to spend an obscene amount of money on new paint. if I don't need to. I will say this, if you are a painter, whether it's watercolor, acrylic inks, or acrylic paints, whatever it is, get yourself a wet palette. The wet palette has been a savior of mine for quite some time because it allows me to be able to walk away from my canvas to go, change over the laundry, and I don't have to worry about the paint drying on my palette. It's because the wet palette is damp underneath, it saves me on so much product. So honestly, if you're going to start painting and you're really, really going to get into it, I would recommend actually investing in a wet palette. You don't need to purchase one. Like if you get parchment paper and paper towel, it will work just as fine if you put it into like a Tupperware container, for example. That's what I was originally using until I finally spent some extra bucks and then purchased myself the wet palette. And it's been the best purchase that I've made so far. There's not a painting or doodle where it involves like a paintbrush where I don't pull out my wet palette. You can actually see the technique that I used in saving the paint as well, similar to what I just spoke of. So I am very much a gym rat, which means that I have an abundance of yogurt containers, because if you are an artist, you tend to collect things that you really don't need and recycling that you really don't need. Side note to all the artists out there, every piece of recycling is not a potential palette. You don't need it, throw it away. You have enough in the cupboard. Thank you. Anywho, but it worked out at the end. So in the yogurt containers, at the bottom of each container, I put in a damp paper towel, just enough water so that way it's if you squeezed it, maybe 2 or 3 drops would come out. And then on top, I put a already soaked parchment paper and then put the mixture of paint on top. To seal it and make sure that no air got to it, I ended up putting packing tape over it, and that created almost like a false lid until such time that I needed to pull out the paint and put it onto the wet palette for that days of painting. Again, it's the 28th of April, and the last time I checked on the paint, it was completely fine. It was still wet. It was still good to use. I used it in a couple of my sketchbooks, so I was able to save some of the mixture of some of the leftover paint that, there was just an abundance of it, which is cool also because that means that I also have a lot of what I like to call my shadow color, so I can actually use it on paintings later. We recycle in this house and repurpose. My brain is completely fried right now. Like I mentioned before, I'm a little bit of a gym brat. So recently we decided to look into doing a 3-day fast. And it was recommended to do keto before the 3-day fast. And we're on day 2 of the keto diet. And I am completely and absolutely drained. Like my brain isn't even firing on all cylinders at this point. It's just like moments of stall. Just apparently once you're done doing the fast, it's supposed to do this whole regeneration of cells and doing a reset. So after the month of shenanigans and running around that I've been up to lately, I figured that this would be a good time to do it before I get down to the nitty gritty. So I'm going hardcore at the gym. I'm going hardcore with my eating, trying to get rid of all the bad bacteria in my body and just kind of do a full reset just because I haven't been feeling myself lately. So I'm hoping this provides a little bit more energy once this is done. But right now, I am running on 2%. At this point in time, if I was a cell phone, I would be screaming to plug myself into the wall. A little update as to what has actually been going on in my life. Some exciting news for the family. We actually have 2 family members on their way, which is super, super exciting. We do have a little boy, and I'm hoping for a little girl because it's becoming very one-sided at this point in my family. 2 of my relatives have recently just announced that we are expecting some new babies coming in sometime around October and end of, I think it's June or July, whenever Canada Day is. Anyways, it has come to the realization that I'm at that age now where, everybody's getting married, everybody's popping out kids, and I can no longer chase the gray hairs that seem to be popping up throughout my hairline. One of my besties actually just got married, and I had the honor of being the maid of honor. Jeebus, I did not have the foggiest idea the amount of planning it took to do a wedding, let alone having to fight with the reservation system when it came to like planning the bachelorette party and getting that all set up, the shopping for shoes, the shopping for the dress, getting everything set up for the actual wedding itself. It took a lot of time out of my schedule. On top of that, of course, you have your regular family visits and everything. Time just got away from me, and it just felt like I literally did not have the time to sit down and do a doodle, let alone a full-fledged video or painting. You always give yourself a little bit of a grace when it comes to time, so you have enough time to get things done. But this one was completely out of my wheelhouse, and my guesstimation for how much time that I required was absolutely incorrect. Everything took like twice as long, and it just kind of threw my schedule for a loop. I would totally do it all over again, hands down, but exhaustion definitely hit me by the end of the week. I've also come to the realization that my art can't be just like a quick doodle anymore. I have higher standards for myself, and I want to, show what I can do and challenge myself a little bit more. And, a quick sketchbook session isn't going to cut it. Like I believe that I'm going to get faster at sketching just as I continue on my way in my progress. I've already improved when it comes to time, and I've already improved on even my skills at this point in time on my YouTube journey. But I think I'm going to switch my schedule to every other week, so that way I have enough time to actually produce a good piece of art instead of just, playing around in my sketchbook. And then I'm going to continue to do, obviously, my regular sketches just on my own time, because it's a little bit more fun and I get to play with it a little bit more. However, with that being said, I am going to do like a sketchbook, what are they called? The sketchbook walkthroughs. Just kind of so you guys can kind of see where like my own personal art style kind of took off. I think that's going to be my next video, just while I get caught up. And I want to pull out some of ideas that I had from before as well, and come up with a game plan of what I really want to do with those as well. So that should be upcoming soon, hopefully. I also want to go back to one of the pieces that I recently did. So if you guys remember the synthetic plant drawing that I recently drew out in pencil, I want to go over that with some of the acrylic inks. Yes, I'm going back to the acrylic inks because I love them a lot, and they are super fun, and I'm getting really good at them, and I like how they perform. But I want to implement more of a mixed media effect with those, where I'm using a different material on top. So we're going to see how that plays out. That one I'm super excited for. Like I have a game plan in my head. I already have the color schemes planned out. I just got to actually sit down and do it. And of course, mix up my palette as well up ahead of time. I got these little tiny jars from Temu, or was it Shein? It was either Temu or Shein, I don't know. But it's going to be great because I'll be able to, make a large batch again and then save the paint, because, I don't want to waste anything. Nobody likes to waste their product. It's like, I know I could always buy more, but at the same time, like, how much artwork could I have done with the rest of that instead of washing it down the sink? One of the challenges and the difference between the acrylic paints too and the acrylic inks in this one, and I think it could have been due to the medium. To be honest, I would have to go back and use the regular acrylic paints to figure out whether or not it was my mixture or if it was the actual paints themselves. The paints dried a lot darker than I anticipated. I ended up having to go back and put on more layers to, brighten it up in some areas. And all in all, the painting did turn out darker than I initially wanted, but I still love it. It came out beautifully. more darker than what I originally planned. Not a bad thing, but also, you know, when you design something, you want it to be the way that you envisioned it, right? That's going to come with time with, you know, playing with the mixture, if it is the mixture or possibly the paint, because I'm not going to give up on this. I don't know. I just want to go back to the acrylic inks for a wee bit. They're super fun. Maybe try out some calligraphy, maybe get into a little bit more watercolor. I want to see how it works on different materials. Can I even use them on canvas? That would be interesting to see as well. Because remember, I'm using like a Bristol board to tackle away at that box too. So yeah, I want to see what it can do, man. How else can I play with this? I want to know. Ooh, and I also want to try my hand at a little bit of like a graffiti effect too. Like maybe my name for like my YouTube banner or something. Yeah. That might be something. Let me know what you think. If you like that idea, because I feel like I could make it really trippy looking, especially if I get the calligraphy down. We shall see. I really don't have that much left to say, so I guess I'll wrap up the video at this point in time and leave you guys with the rest of the painting. But I want to thank you so much for watching. I'm already working on my next video, which I'm excited to post as well. And hopefully I can actually squeeze out a little bit of a sketchbook tour from my last sketchbook. The one that actually like set my creativity on fire. That one I'm really excited to share. And I love sharing it with the community. I love to hear everybody's feedback. Yeah, it brings me quite a bit of joy, and it gives me something to do throughout the day. I'd love to hear from you guys. I hope this video sparked a little bit of creativity within yourself. It's always fun to push your limits to see how far your own skills can take you, right? The best way to learn something is to sometimes just jump right in it. You can read about it as much as you want, but until you actually get down to the nitty-gritty, it doesn't really work the same way. So stay tuned for that and make sure to hit the notification button so you don't miss out on the next couple of videos. It's always inspiring to create something new and to really push myself to the limit. One of the best things about starting this channel is I finally set apart time for myself in order to actually complete artwork, which I never used to do before. And for that, my friends, I bid you adieu for now. And my final thoughts are, go touch paint. Yeah. Okay, bye.